The air in Lagos was thick with heat and noise, horns blaring, vendors calling, life pulsing in every corner. Ifemelu stood by the window of the small airport lounge, watching the airplanes take off one by one. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass, a young woman with brown skin, bright eyes, and a heart full of questions. She was leaving Nigeria for America. Her mother had cried that morning. Her father had simply said, "Remember where you come from." But Ifemelu didn't yet know what that meant. Obens had come to see her off. He didn't say much, just held her hand quietly. There were no promises, only silence, the kind that holds both hope and fear. As the announcement echoed, Flight 207 to Philadelphia now boarding, Ifemelu felt her heartbeat quicken. Was she running toward something new, or away from something real? She didn't know. She only knew she needed to go. The airplane rose into the sky. Below, the city became smaller, the red earth fading beneath the clouds. Ifemelu pressed her forehead to the window and whispered, "Goodbye, Lagos. I'll find out who I am, even if it takes me far away." The first thing Ifemelu noticed in America was the silence. No car horns, no shouting vendors, only the hum of air conditioners and the echo of her own footsteps. The sky looked different too, pale, endless, cold. She stood at the window of her aunt's small apartment in Philadelphia, watching the snow fall for the first time. Each flake touched the ground softly, like whispers from another world. Her Aunt Uju smiled gently. "You'll get used to it, my dear." But Ifemelu wasn't sure. She felt both invisible and too visible at once. At the supermarket, people looked at her hair, her accent, her skin, as if each one told a story they didn't understand. That night, she wrote in her small notebook, "In this country, silence is heavy. Even the sky looks lonely." Days turned into weeks. She started college, met people from everywhere. China, Mexico, Ghana, and America itself. Everyone seemed to be searching for something. But inside her heart, she missed the chaos of Lagos. The smell of roasted corn, the sound of street laughter, and the way the sun kissed her skin like it knew her name. Ifemelu closed her eyes that night and whispered to herself, "I will not forget who I am, even under this strange pale sky." Weeks turned into months. Ifemelu had started working part-time at a small cafe near campus. The smell of coffee and sugar filled her mornings, but inside, she felt hollow. One evening, she looked at herself in the mirror. Her reflection stared back. Tired eyes, braided hair, a face that seemed to belong to two worlds but fit in none. She remembered her first week of college, when a classmate had said, "You speak such good English." Ifemelu had smiled politely, but something inside her broke a little. She had always spoken English. It was the language of her childhood, her dreams. But in this new world, even her voice was foreign. Slowly, she began to change her accent, softening her words to sound American. At first, it felt like power. Later, it felt like loss. That night, she washed her face, wiped the steam from the mirror, and whispered, "I don't want to disappear to be seen." When she walked outside, the city lights reflected on the wet streets. Somewhere she heard distant laughter, and she smiled. Maybe finding herself wasn't about becoming someone new, but remembering who she had always been. The blog began as a whisper. One night, unable to sleep, Ifemelu opened her laptop and started to write. Not for anyone else, but for herself. She called it The Black Girl's Silence. At first, her words trembled. She wrote about her first winter, about hair that refused to behave, and about the looks that said you are different. She didn't edit or polish, she just spoke. The next morning, she woke to hundreds of comments. Strangers from across the world wrote, "I feel this too." For the first time since she had arrived in America, Ifemelu felt seen, not as a color, not as an accent, but as a voice. Her blog grew fast. She wrote about race, identity, belonging, things people whispered about but never said aloud. Each post was a mirror for others, and a confession for herself. One night, she looked at her reflection on the laptop screen and smiled. This was not the girl who had once tried to sound American. This was the woman who had found her own sound. The silence that had once suffocated her was gone. Now her words had wings, and they were learning to fly. It had been years since Ifemelu had last spoken to Obins. Life had swept them into different worlds, she to America, he to London. Yet their memories lingered like the scent of rain on dry earth. One night, while reading comments on her blog, she saw a name that made her heart stop. Obins. He had written, "Your words remind me of someone I once knew. A girl who dreamed of red earth and endless skies." Ifemelu's hands trembled. She wrote back, her heart racing. Perhaps she still dreams. Perhaps she never stopped. Emails followed, then long letters filled with fragments of old laughter. They wrote about the things they had lost, and the people they were becoming. Through every word, Ifemelu could hear his voice again, calm, patient, the sound of home. Sometimes, she would pause and close her eyes, imagining him standing under that mango tree from their youth, the wind brushing his face. Though oceans separated them, their words began to bridge the distance. For the first time in years, Ifemelu didn't feel alone. Some roots, she realized, never die. They simply wait for the rain. When Ifemelu returned to Nigeria after 13 years, the air smelled of dust, diesel, and memory. The Lagos sun was brighter than she remembered, harsh, golden, alive. Her taxi weaved through crowds, horns blaring, hawkers shouting in Yoruba and Igbo. It was chaos, but it was home. She looked out the window, recognizing corners of her past. The market where she once bought mangoes, the wall she and Obins had painted with their secret signs. The city had changed, yet it carried the same restless rhythm, the beat of the unseen drum. At night, from her new apartment balcony, she listened to the city breathe. Music floated from distant bars, laughter echoed from the streets, and she felt something deep stir inside her, a sense of belonging that no foreign sky had ever given. Her phone buzzed. A message. Obins. Welcome home, Ifem. The city's been waiting for you. She smiled, heart trembling. After all the years of silence, the drumbeat had finally called her back, and she was ready to dance again. When Ifemelu and Obins met again, it was as if time folded quietly upon itself. They stood across from each other in a small cafe in Lagos. Two people changed by distance, yet still made of the same memory. Obins looked at her for a long moment. His hair was shorter now, his eyes deeper, filled with both joy and regret. "Ifem," he said softly, the word trembling like the first note of a song. She smiled, not the practiced smile of years abroad, but the true one that once made his heart race. "Obins," she whispered. They spoke for hours. About London, about America, about silence. There were long pauses, but they didn't feel empty. They felt alive, filled with everything that had remained unsaid. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. "Do you ever think of the old days?" he asked. "Every day," she replied. "But now I want to think of tomorrow." Outside, the city pulsed like a drumbeat, the sun sliding low behind the skyline. And in that quiet moment they realized, some loves don't return the same, but they still find a way to shine again. The old mango tree still stood behind Ifemelu's childhood home. Its roots had grown deeper, its branches wider, just like the memories that clung to it. She and Obins met there one late afternoon, when the air smelled of dust and rain. Obins leaned against the trunk, his eyes distant. "Do you remember," he said, "how we used to sit here and talk about leaving? About the world waiting for us?" Ifemelu smiled, brushing her fingers over the bark. "I remember. We wanted everything: freedom, success, adventure." "And did we find it?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. The silence between them was soft, filled with cicadas and wind. "Maybe," she finally said. "But we also lost something on the way, something we left right here." Obins nodded slowly. He picked up a fallen mango, turning it in his hands. "Maybe it's still here, waiting," he said. The sky darkened. Thunder rumbled far away. For a moment neither moved. Then she looked up at the tree and whispered, "Maybe home isn't a place. Maybe it's a person." And in that quiet stormlit moment, the years between them seemed to melt away. Lagos had a pulse that never stopped. Every morning, Ifemelu woke to the sound of honking cars, shouting vendors, and the hum of a city that refused to sleep. She had thought returning home would quiet her heart, but instead, it only made the noise inside louder. Her blog had become popular in Nigeria now. People read her reflections on identity, love, and what it meant to come back. Some praised her honesty, others called her too American. But she didn't mind. Her words were her way of breathing, of finding herself again in this fast, hungry city. One afternoon, she met Obins at a rooftop cafe overlooking the crowded streets. The city below shimmered like a restless sea. "You see," she said, "Lagos speaks. It whispers, it shouts, it sings. You just have to listen." He smiled. "And what does it say to you?" She looked out at the skyline, the sunlight catching her curls. "It says I'm home, but not the same person who left. The wind carried music from below. Drums, laughter, life. For the first time, she didn't feel torn between two worlds. She belonged to both, and neither. And somehow that was enough. Nights in Lagos were never silent, yet Ifemelu often found herself listening, not to the city, but to her own heart. There were echoes there, soft, uncertain, like footsteps in the dark. Obins had started visiting her more often. Sometimes they talked for hours, sometimes they said nothing at all. There was comfort in their quiet, an unspoken understanding that words could never reach. One evening, the power went out, as it often did. They sat in the dark, candles flickering between them. "Do you ever wish things had been different?" she asked. Obins didn't answer right away. He looked at her, really looked, and said, "No, because then we wouldn't be here now." Something shifted in the air. The years of distance, of silence, of what-ifs, they all seemed to fall away. Ifemelu reached for his hand, and this time he didn't pull away. Outside, the night hummed with life, crickets, wind, distant music. Inside, two hearts finally found their rhythm again. It wasn't the same song they had once played, but it was still theirs. The days that followed were quieter, yet heavy with meaning. Ifemelu and Obins both knew something unspoken hung between them, a question neither dared to voice. One afternoon, Obins confessed, "My life isn't simple, Ifem. I have a wife, a daughter, a world built from choices I can't undo." His words cut through the air like glass. Ifemelu felt her chest tighten, but she didn't cry. She had lived long enough to know that love isn't always meant to fit neatly into life's plans. "I'm not asking for what's impossible," she said softly. "I just wanted to know if you still feel it, what we once had." Obins met her eyes. "I never stopped." The silence that followed was tender and painful all at once. They both understood. Sometimes love wasn't about holding on. It was about acknowledging what could never fully be. As he left, the evening sun spilled gold across her floor. Ifemelu stood there, breathing deeply, feeling both broken and whole. She whispered to herself, "Maybe love isn't a destination. Maybe it's the courage to walk away when your heart still wants to stay." Weeks passed. Lagos shifted from dust to rain. The city glistened again, washed clean by thunder and memory. Ifemelu sat by her window, watching the drops race down the glass, each one carrying a story of the past. Her blog had taken a new turn, no longer about America or race or longing. Now it was about home, about rediscovering roots. She wrote, "Perhaps we leave so we can return differently, not as who we were, but as who we've become." Sometimes she thought of Obins, not with ache anymore, but with gratitude. He had been a chapter, not the ending, but a rhythm that taught her how to listen to her own heart again. That evening, she walked through the streets barefoot, letting the rain soak her hair and skin. Children laughed, drums echoed, the city smelled alive. She felt a strange peace, as if the earth itself had whispered, "Welcome home." Looking up, she smiled through the rain. For the first time, she didn't feel divided between two worlds. She was both, the girl who left and the woman who came back. And as the rain fell harder, Ifemelu whispered to the wind, "I am home."